Hello and welcome to happilyeducated.com. We are in a different room today, partially because the lighting is a little better, and partially because I wanted to show off that we have paint on some of our walls now. Now, unfortunately, I don't know that you can tell what a lovely color this is. It looks rather gray on my screen, but you've just got to trust me that this is a very pretty shade of green. But anyhow, I have recently been wondering why people, myself included, often ignore the advice of experts. It seems to me that we would probably be better off in general if we did what the experts told us to do, but we don't, and I'm curious why. Now, sometimes, of course, it's just difficult to figure out who the experts are. Since anyone can call him or herself an expert. And, if you turn on the TV for just a few minutes, you will inevitably see a number of so-called experts trying to sell you something. And certainly when this kind of conflict of interest is involved, we should be very wary of expert advice. And similarly, if you watch a news program, you'll see this whole group of pundits, all of whom claim expert status in some way, loudly arguing with one another about what's best for our country and contradicting each other all over the place. And so it's just hard to tell who actually knows what they're talking about, if anyone. But what I'm referring to is heeding the advice of people who really do know what they're talking about. For example, if a group of scientists, all of whom have dedicated their life to studying a specific topic, if they all agree about something, then we should probably listen to them. And I hate to get political on you again, but climate science is really a great example of this. It is absolutely crazy that we do not heed the warnings of climate scientists. And it's also rather arrogant. What on earth leads people to believe that they know more about climate change than the people who actually study climate change? It's just silly. And even though climate scientists can't prove without a doubt that man-made climate change is happening, they still know more about it than non-climate scientists do. So it's also reasonable to assume that experts will be wrong or half wrong some of the time. And I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. Although the conclusions drawn from one specific study may be incorrect or misleading, when taken together with the results of many, many studies, that study can still move us closer toward understanding the truth. I think if you look at how far we've come in the last 100 years or so, it's obvious that we are making progress. Science is figuring things out, even if sometimes scientists do make mistakes. And I think a really interesting example of this is advice from nutrition experts. You probably remember just a few years ago when we were all warned to stop eating saturated fats because they were going to kill us. But now it turns out saturated fat, maybe they're not so bad, but it's sugar that we should avoid. And if a person were to try to modify his or her diet based on the results of every single study, food-related study that came out, he or she would go insane because there's just too much contradictory advice, too many back and forth changes. So that's just not practical. But what I would suggest is that we should be looking for those general trends that the majority of nutrition experts can agree on. And for example, I think, Michael Pollan's advice that we should, quote, eat food, not too much, mostly plants, end quote. That's the kind of thing that most nutrition experts can get behind. And of course, by eat food, he's referring to real food, not the processed chemical-laden garbage that our grocery stores are full of. So, yes, looking for these general trends that the majority of experts agree on. If we were to take those seriously, it seems like it would be a good idea. Now, I confess that the reason that I've been thinking about this lately is that I'm frustrated with my students who do not do what I tell them to do, even though, in comparison to them, I am an expert. I've been playing the cello for a lot longer, I've had excellent training, and I just play better than they do, as I should. And if they were to listen to what I say, if they were to do what I say, then they would improve quickly and dramatically. But many of them don't do what I say. And more often than not, my students come back week after week with the same mistakes they had the previous week. And this is, of course, frustrating to me. And I don't doubt for a second that it is largely my fault as the teacher. I'm sure I could do more to improve my communication skills so that I could be crystal clear about what they should practice, why they should practice it, how they should practice. Similarly, I could probably do more to motivate my students so that they'd be more invested in their own progress. But I think there is more to it than that. I think some of my students, no matter what I were to tell them to do, they just wouldn't do it. And in considering why this is, I've been thinking about why I don't always follow the advice of experts. For example, I've been working on meditating lately, and I've read several meditation books, and I recently finished a 6-week meditation class. But in my meditation practice, I usually just do whatever I want to do without any regard for all the advice I've gotten from more experienced meditators. And I know this is stupid. I know I would progress more quickly if I did what the expert said, but I don't. And I think there are 3 main reasons for my foolishness. Reason number 1, as I was talking about in my last post on self-determination theory, is that I need/want to experience a sense of autonomy. And having other people tell me what to do threatens my sense of autonomy, so I'm inclined to resist doing what I'm told. Reason number 2 is that I tend to not like to change. Change is hard. And so even if my way of doing things isn't the best way, I'm often inclined to just stick with it because that's the way I've always done things, and it allows me to avoid making changes in my life. And reason number 3, unfortunately, is arrogance. I tend to think that my way of doing things is the best way, simply because it's mine. So basically, I'm biased in my own favor, which, again, is probably pretty stupid. So this post is long enough, so I'm going to cut myself off right here. But just imagine for a second what the world would be like if everyone took expert advice seriously. What if we all exercised regularly and ate well and, planned for retirement, had only protected sex, changed our passwords regularly, didn't text and drive, etc., etc., etc. Would the world be a dreadfully boring place, or would it actually be rather pleasant? And I don't know what I think about that, but I would be very curious to hear your thoughts. So hope you will be willing to share, and thanks so much for watching this. Until next time, happy learning.